All right, so I'm going to maximize. I have my virtual machine started.
Should we do that?
Yeah, so go ahead and get your virtual machine.
So we start with the VM.
Yeah, so get VM workstation, right?
Mhm.
And then just start the virtual machine. Usually all what that involves is
SQL.
yeah, the SQL Express. And it usually what it involves is just clicking I have a, can't hardly see it up there, but there's a pause thing there. Where it has to pause, you'll have probably a green arrow. And there's a green arrow like the two. So you can just start it. It'll take it a minute. So just, yeah, hit the green arrow and it should start.
And then wasn't there a different thing we do where you bring up the SQL thing, or is that this too?
That's
all of it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up the SQL application in a minute. So now letting you start?
That just says customer participation. Like a lot of stuff's popping up.
Oh. Well, one of the things when you do, yeah, I do not know when I make these, but David made these. When I make these, I turn off updates. Because they're only lasting a month, and then the virtual machine will be wiped out and they'll re-image well, not a month, the end of the quarter, right? They will.
Steve, is that right?
You can save onto the virtual machine. If you want to copy it off the virtual machine, it will read like your thumb drive. Or if you have it, you could put it up in a cloud drive. Or you can actually, if you want, it's okay if you take the whole virtual machine. The thing about taking the whole virtual machine is that one, it's really big. And if you don't have a good machine at home, it'll be too slow to be worth it. You need at least 8 gigs of RAM and better 16 or 32.
So if I'm going to work here on this machine, it just came up and said, I have to sign in as you? Is that correct?
Yes, you do have to sign in as me. You guys want to know how to do a different person?
No, I don't care. Is it that password?
It is this password, the P@SSW0RD1. Again, I didn't make it. When I make this, I usually put a student account there. So at least you can be student instead of me. But, it doesn't matter. Just if you wanted to create your own account in here.
No,
All right. Well, at some time I'll show you how if you want. You basically have to create a new user. And then once you've created the user, you have to go into SQL Server and make them an admin in SQL Server. We'll talk a little bit about security. That might be the time to do it because that's when it's actually makes sort of sense. So are most of you up? So let's bring up SQL Server. And again, what you want is the SQL Server 2014 Management Studio. There are other SQL Server apps there. There's a SQL Server configuration. There's a SQL Server profiler. In fact, if you look, there's about 20. They're all different. They do different things related to SQL Server, but the Management Studio is the main one. And it's particularly the one for managing literally the databases and pretty much all the features of the database. The others are mostly for managing the server, keeping track of how it's performing, making sure everything is running right. And you should be able to disconnect. Now, if this is empty, or if you're doing this at home, it's the machine name .SQL Express. And you can, if you don't want to write your machine name or look it up, you can just do /SQL Express. It has the same effect. So /SQL Express will work. If you on your own machine installed the complete SQL Server, then it's probably not SQL Express, it's localhost most likely. So rather SQL Express, it would be local. Named your server, then you have to give it the name, whatever you named it. You have to install it to make it or to name it. Okay, so once I connect, we have our different databases. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I just did want to kind of reiterate to enter data in this environment. So let's do, I'm going to right click on DVD and I'm going to say edit top 200 rows. This is probably your main way of entering data. This is not the way that the data would probably be entered in the real world, right? Because in the real world, you would have built some interface. You would build some interface. You would build web forms or Windows forms or Linux forms, you know, whatever, Java forms. You would have probably done something so that they don't have to interact directly with the database, because it's a bit of a pain to enter data directly into a database. It isn't usually done. It's usually done through some sort of interface.
Where would those forms
exist? You have to write them. You have to write them in
from scratch.
Yeah, in C#, HTML and C#, or typically with SQL Server. You can do PHP. PHP is typically used to talk to MySQL, to some extent Postgres. Java is usually used to talk to Oracle, and C# is usually used to talk to SQL Server. Though you're not limited to that. You could do PHP to SQL Server. You could do PHP to Oracle. I mean, you can do any language you want. It's just that there are ones that are meant to work together. So when you enter data, I mean, as I said, this number there is pretty easy. Don't know, since it was Halloween recently, Dark City, that's a pretty good movie. Anybody ever see that? Yeah. I don't know what the year was. Yeah.
97.
Yeah, let's do 97. I don't care too much. Now, one of the things that I've told you before is when you get this exclamation mark, it just means that the row isn't saved. There are times when you cannot go on to the next row. And that usually that's in something like, let's go to DVD actor. So I think I have like one actor. I'm going to right click and do edit top 200 rows.
Maybe put in a couple more.
Yeah, I don't have, so partly sure I want it. So I'm going to say DVD key 3, which does exist, but the actor I'm going to say 7, which doesn't exist. And it won't let me move on, right? Part of the benefit of a foreign key, because the actor key is a foreign key, is it involves what they call a constraint. And the constraint is that you are not allowed to enter any data into this field that does not exist. So what it means is you can't enter an actor that you haven't already, that doesn't already exist in your actor table. It's a bit of a pain, but it can, it keeps your data consistent, right? And if you're building an application, then you have to account for that. You have to make sure that if it's a new actor that hasn't been entered into the table, that you enter the actor first before you, and then put their number into this table. There's no way out of this until you get a valid number there, or you press escape, and escape will wipe out the whole row. I just wanted to show you that. The idea of putting data in here so we can do some testing and make sure that the database kind of follows the business rules. It'll do what you want it to do, and to give you some practice with SQL. That being said, I would only put in like 5 to 10 max records in any one table. The point, you might put in, if you for real, what you would want is a variety of data to test the different conditions. So you don't need a lot of data because data entry is tedious. How it deals with exceptions and things like that. So for your group databases, as I said, just mostly the vinyl databases. If you do 5 to 10 records, you could have like 5 albums, and then just 2, 3 customers, things like that, just to see if everything kind of works. Also, when you're entering data is when you will realize if any of your relationships are backwards. Because if you have a relationship backwards, or if you have the relationship wrong, you won't be able to enter data. So that's a good key. It's a test to make sure that you drug the right way, basically, in the relationships. Questions on data entry? As I said, this is the easiest way. Just edit top 200 rows. The other way you can do it, but this is pretty easy, but it involves, again, the SQL, which we're going to do. Is you could say insert into, let's do actor. And then generally what you do with this insert statement is you list the columns, drag them all in. So if we wanted one for Dark City, Keith Sutherland, I don't know how to spell his name. Is it like that?
No, F like Frank.
T-K.
Oh, it's Kiefer.
Yeah.
And it needs to be in quotes. Single quotes. SQL is very touchy about single versus double quotes. Actually, so it's just the whole. Is that right? Yeah, it doesn't matter a whole lot. I can't type. Birth date, I have no idea. Did I do it as a date time in there? I think I did.
He was like in his 20s. Is that 1970?
Yeah. I'm curious. What you can do when you're entering is you can look, and I did do it as a date. So I need to actually make it a date. All right. One of the things you can do also is you could do another row. Another actor, any actor, I don't care. Well, how do you spell? Oh, Conley. Yeah, something like that. I have no idea when she was born. She's probably younger than Keith.
I bet she looked the same.
You think so?
She was in that movie, what, like Dark Crystal or something?
Yeah.
As a little girl, though, right?
No, she was in Labyrinth.
Oh, Labyrinth, yeah.
David Bowie.
With David Bowie. David Bowie's in a couple of interesting movies. The Man Who Fell to Earth is actually quite good. All right, so you could do, this will enter two people. See, it's how it says down here, 2 rows affected. Yeah, 2 rows affected. So if I do, and this is where we start basically on the SQL, select star from actor. All right, so this says we're data. Almost every query that retrieves data starts with the word select. Asterisk is a wild card. It says I want it all. But it's talking about the row, not the number of rows, but from actor, and actor is the table. So from always precedes what table is it from? Black columns table. That's sort of the basic SQL statement over and over again. And that I have, Pat, Keith Sutherland, and Jennifer. So we've added those people, and you can check that by the select statement. Now I'm going to get a database here, which you can do also if you want. So I have something to query. There's not much in my DVD database. I don't want to spend a lot of time doing the data entry right now. So, and again, this is optional for you guys. I'm going to go to GitHub. Do you guys know GitHub? It's a place you should start to know if you don't. So I'm going to go to HTTP. I don't think I need the HTTP, but www.github.com. And I'm going to go to my account, which is SP Conger. It's interesting. There are other Steve Congers, but nobody has quite my initials. So SP Conger seems to work. All right. So GitHub is basically a program where you can post code. Now it comes up on where did it came up? It came up on contributions, I think. But you won't go back there. But you want to click on the repositories tab anyway. And there's a place that says database schema. But anyway, GitHub is a place where you can post code and share it. So when you're going out job hunting in a couple of years or sooner, if you want to show them stuff that you have done on GitHub, and you can show it to them. Really show them like so if you post it here, you can show it. You can share it in a versioning tool. So you can post it here, and if a lot of people are working on it, they can branch off of it. They can create versions of it without destroying your version, and it keeps a history of versions. So it's a versioning tool, which is also really good. It's all free as long as you're public. So as long as you keep your code public, it's all free. If you want a private repository, which if you're working on something that might win you, huge money, then you have to pay. So it's only pay if it's private. It's as long as you keep everything public, it's free. It's also a good place to search for code samples because it's free. There's lots of code samples up here, and you can search. It's all searchable. What I'm going to do is community assist. Yeah, assist. There it goes. Nice thing about it too. Why did it go away? I must have clicked something else. Database schema. Community assist. So what it does is it shows all the code. It's a little bit color-coded, and it is fairly smart. It usually knows kind of what kind of code it is, whether it's C# or Java or SQL. I am going to go to raw, and hopefully it'll come up correctly. Yeah, that's what I wanted, because I don't want to copy line numbers and stuff like that. The raw is just the raw code. So I'm going to just do Control-A, and I can go through this again if you want it. And I did a Control-C. I'm going to do a brand new query, and I'm going to paste it in there. And what this query is, this is a whole database. It's the script for a database. And if I go back up to databases and refresh, you'll see that I have a community assist database. It has tables, and all those tables have data. It's kind of neat. You can create a database. You can move it around with the script like that. So I'll show you back where it was. I'll walk through it just a second, but because we're not going to do a lot of the stuff that's in here. But if you want to look at the script, you can. One of the things that I do right at the beginning is I check to see if the database exists. If it does exist, I drop it, I get rid of it, and then I recreate it. So I create the database. There's a lot of extra stuff on there because I'll show you how to do this. You can script anything in the database by right-clicking on it and saying script it. Everything in SQL Server, everything in any relational database is done with SQL. All the graphical tools translate into SQL. You know, SQL is happening all the time in these databases. And we'll talk a little bit more about it in a moment. But so everything, I mean, you can create every object, every command that exists in this interface can be done with an SQL. And in fact, a lot of professional databases would never open this tool. They would just open PowerShell and run SQL commands.
Database first, and then
No, you don't need to create it first, because the very first statement after I drop it is to create it. Create database community assist. So just run the script from the top.
So you highlight database and then run a query.
No, I just put the cursor. I do put the cursor by use master at the very top of the script, and then it will run the whole script. Does anybody need me to go back to GitHub and show how we got the script? Yeah.
Got the script, but I'm not sure where you put it.
So you want a new query, and then you just paste it into the new query window. So since it will rewrite all of this, I suppose I could just do it again. So what I did, actually I'm going to change this. It should be all right. So I went to GitHub. So GitHub is pretty simple. Let's see. Why is my internet so slow?
Yeah, let me figure that.
Where's the database schema?
Go back to GitHub. So I went to, actually, let me just. That and we'll start. This is for samples only, but what I'm going to do is just www.git with an I, github.com/spconger. The /spconger is to go to my account. So I do that. Now it comes up here and it has these contributions. I don't know why these show up as opposed to others, but what you want to do is go to the list of all the repositories. And then the database schema is about the third one down. Did you get there?
I'm trying to do it on mine, and I just have to see the
Just you want to get into the account.
Well, that's actually, so, all right. So what you want to do is maybe search for spconger. You went to GitHub, but you didn't go
I
to
went to
my.
my own.
Oh, you went to your own.
Is there no way for me to see those?
Yeah, if you go to spconger.
You have your own.
Yes, I have my own repositories. So I don't know if you want to do, yeah, just put spconger into that. And then press enter. And then go to repositories. And then database. Yeah, anybody, as I said, if you put something up here, if it's for free, it's public, anybody can take it. So, and anybody can branch off of it.
Wait, even if it's licensed? Because that's a gray area. If you're licensed,
I think they still
you
can.
can't.
There's nothing in GitHub, I don't think, that will prevent them.
Oh, they could still take it, but illegally.
Yeah, but I you know, if you want it private, you can pay. It's not a lot to pay. Or not put it up on GitHub.
Only school.
So what? Then you can go to data, and it was Now, this is a nicer reading because it's a little bit color coded, but if you want to copy it, it's best to go to raw.
So how do you,
There's a button at the top that says raw.
I see.
Once I go to raw, it's not there anymore. So,
I'm just command A,
right,
C.
so you just want to do, yeah, raw. And then, yeah, Command A to select it all, or Control A. Command shows you Mac use.
Oh, did I say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Control A, why is it not? Oh, because I have to click into it. Control A, Control C. Go back here, do a brand new query.
And the date, and the DVD,
It doesn't matter.
it'll know.
Well, so one of the very first things that it does, if you go all the way to the top, is it says use master. So it changes the database context of the very first thing.
Then we click execute.
Yeah, and you should just be able to, I'm going to put the cursor by use, but I don't think it matters. Going to click execute, and it should,
Oh,
you should end up with this, which are just all the data being written.
mine didn't do that. I have a bunch of red messages.
What does it say here?
Alright, so, alright, so I'm gonna get out of this. Exit.
Yeah.
Don't say-
No, so go back. Click on that thing called
Okay, so now if I click on this, I can never change. Okay, now from here, how do I open up the VM? I did it from here before. Not VM, SQL Server.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did that, okay. That's right. See, now look, this is the same thing. You open up this
You
different,
know what, so,
so like the zeros.
yeah.
No, that's what I can't figure out. Alright, cancel this.
So-
Right here. If I type. Let's see.
Yeah. I did all the-
Oh, that's not,
That's not,
that's not your virtual machine.
okay,
So everybody, I mean, I didn't, this is just for sample stuff.
okay, so this now I'm here.
Once you've run it, you can either,
Oh, I see.
you can keep the script or not keep the script. It's done its work. So if you want to look at it at some point, you can keep it. All this stuff where it says set ANSI padding off, set ANSI nulls on, those are all defaults. They could all be deleted. But you get them when you right-click and say to script something. I wrote the original script, but after I'd added a bunch of data, it was, rather than write all these insert statements, I just had it script the database. I'll show you how to do that.
How do you expand your whole screen again so that you, 'cause that's where I got confused.
Right up there.
This one.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's,
So you were just getting permission errors. That's why I thought it was.
I just kept going, yeah, I was connected outside of my virtual machine.
It's weird. I'm not sure why you installed SQL Server outside the machine since we can't use it.
Did I do that or was that?
No. Why the image has it installed.
Okay, I got it. Oh, that's really good.
So as I said, once that's done, you can pretty well ignore that script unless you want to look at it. The point was just to create the database. So that's one way to move a database, by the way, is with the script. And as I said, I could show you. The other way is you can go into the files and, well, you have to detach them, and I'll show you that later. But we've only got about a half hour, so let's see what we can do with the SQL. I'm going to, as I said, you can ignore this. This is kind of a super sophisticated script, but it's a little bit. I'm going to do it. Oops, again.
Okay.
Doesn't matter who created the database.
Made three now.
Yeah.
Does it actually make three?
No, no. The first statement is
So how does it do that? Would it try to create three of them, or would it?
it would fail because you can only have the same name. I could say community, create a second instance. And there are ways to clone things, but you have to clone them to a new server. I did a new query. Yeah. So, a couple of things about Community Assist. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. It has lots of tables there. Let me do a real quick database diagram just to sort of show it. And I have to say yes to allow this stuff. I don't know if I can get it all in the window. Business rules really aren't part of it. They were there for reference. Yeah, this is just for reference. I don't know. Things aren't moving super well.
Okay, so we should this.
Yeah, I don't think you necessarily need to do this. Parse mess, and that's way down there. Community service is meant to be a database for like a nonprofit, and they base money to people for short-term needs in the community. So there's this is a list of the services. This is a list of the actual grants. This is every grant gets reviewed by an employee before they finalize it. There's a list of employees. All of the people in the database are in a person table, and it depends on how their keys get distributed elsewhere, whether they're an employee or a person asking for a grant. There's also, I don't know that it's showing here because this is spread out all over the place, but there's a separate person contact table. I'm looking for, there's a place for donors too. There it is, donation. So there's a place that tracks donors and donations. So that's sort of the general idea. And there's quite a bit of data in some of the tables. It's not a huge amount, but let's just do, so as I said, I wanted to do some real basic SQL. And SQL, as I said, is the language of relational databases. And it is an ANSI standard, which means an American National Standards Institute. And it's an ISO standard, which is an international standards organization. So all the databases out there that are relational pretty much implement the standard SQL. And it'll look about the same. The standard is a little bit vague on, it says that you have to have, so it doesn't say what you have to call them. So the different database management systems name differently, which can be a real pain when you're trying to translate from one to another. The other thing is that both institutes say that you are free to expand SQL, and almost everybody has. So there's all sorts of commands that are unique to a particular database management system. So the regular ones, the standard ones, are pretty much everywhere, but every database has their own functions and their own names for things, and their data types are different. It's close enough that you can walk from SQL Server to Oracle and not be lost. Yeah, I mean, you just have to learn a few differences, but it's far enough apart to be a little bit of a pain. I'd say it's about 95%, maybe 90% the same across the boards, but there's still a bit of variation. SQLH. And is this big enough? Let me change my font a little bit. This has, if I go down to you know, like fonts and colors. This is under Tools Options. I can change my font size. I'm already kind of big because of the screen resolution, but I'll make it a little bit bigger. We'll see how that goes. Actually, I was going to do one other thing. If you go down to text editor, I believe, all languages, it's under Tools, Options, Text Editor, all languages, line numbers. Is that big enough from the back, or do you want it bigger? Okay. So as I said, the basic command. Now, SQL is not case sensitive, unlike most languages. So it is not case sensitive, although if you are the style, which I tend to ignore because I'm lazy, is to put SQL keywords in all caps. It's not as important in this environment because they're color coded. But if it's a text file, it's traditional naming convention to put them in all caps. But it's not case sensitive. And it's not case sensitive even and I think this is person last name. One of the things you can do, and it's really useful in these, is you can open up the columns and you can see what the names of the columns are. And you can see what data type they are. So I'm going to do person last name, person first name, and the username, I believe, is an email in this. So I'm going to do person username. So what I've done is I've listed the fields, and then I'm going to do from, and then I'm going to say the table, which is person. So these are 3 fields from person. Now, here's another thing why they're all underlined. I probably need to say use community assist. And I'll execute that line. If you highlight a line, you execute only that line. So it only executes the selected line. Oh, and I have an extra comma. There's no comma after the last one in the list.
So since you didn't do the wildcard, you're only selecting a specific.
Right, so this is where you want to list specific columns. And they don't have to be the same order that they are in the table. I mean, you can list, if I wanted to split this into first name, last name, that's perfectly fine. It will return them in the order you
So
request.
just highlight the first 2 lines
What do you mean?
when you
Oh.
execute it.
Yeah, so the first thing I did is I executed just use community assist. If I want to execute just this one, I will execute, and so when I click it, it gives me the names, and it gives me, you know, the last name, first name, username. SQL is considered a declarative language because I didn't tell it how to do this, right? I told it what to do. I told it go get first name, last name, and username from person and return it. If I'd done this in C#, I would have had to go and say, find this file, load these up, you know.
Use some type of function.
and
to
use-
scroll
yeah.
through it.
You'd have to loop through them, right,
Yeah.
to see them. Yeah. So with SQL, you don't have to do that. You just have to say what you want to do, not how to do it. English like. Underneath, not that you probably care, it's C++ looping through stuff. Yeah.
You put it like from person before select or
No, it has to be after.
after.
The order does matter. As I said, it's more English-like and it's a little bit easier, at least initially, but it's still a computer language. So if I put a comma here, there will be an error and it won't run. In fact, the main errors initially are commas.
So I know you just said it's not case sensitive, so it wouldn't matter, but as a matter of practice, would use typically be the same, like all caps that we selected from are, just to have good hygiene for using other languages, or?
It should be if you were being. The other thing that I never do in SQL that I probably should is semicolons. So
'Cause it doesn't use
in this environment, it ignores the semicolons. But if you go to MySQL or you go to Oracle or you go to another language, the semicolons will be required. Microsoft is saying that they're going to revert back to requiring semicolons eventually too.
It doesn't cause an error if you use them.
No, it ignores them one way or another.
And so
With a couple of exceptions.
on line 3, would you also have a semicolon, or is that different?
No.
You would.
No, because this is one command together.
I see.
And you can break these up. So this is perfectly valid also.
Because it's looking for the commas.
It's looking for the commas. It
I see.
ignores the white space and the blind breaks.
Oh, I actually like that better.
Is there a way to export that information in Excel?
There are some export tools that will translate it to Excel. Yes, actually. It's not so much from this, though. You pretty much have to go and use, there's an import-export tool. And Excel is one of the things that exports to rather easily, actually.
So you can import and export.
From Excel, yes. Basically, if I click on Community Assist and go to Tasks, do I have to go to Tasks? Notice it has at the very bottom, import data and export data. We're not going to go there right now, but yes, you can. It gives you a little wizard. I think you can do it from SQL, but I'm not entirely sure what the syntax for that is. I'm going to do a little modification of this. Let's select star from person. So this is going to give me everything from person. So that's the wild card. Wild card it's really useful when you just want to look at the data. It's a little bit dangerous in a programming environment because you don't know what you're going to get. Things might have changed since you last called, and it could be a problem. I'm going to though sort these. Let's do order by. Should we do person last name? So what that'll do? What do you think that does?
Start with that and then just try to display it as best it can using what you told it.
Well, so it's going to take everything from person. So you're not choosing the columns and you're not choosing the order of the columns. It's going to return them all. Order by is sorting. So it's going to sort by person last name. Yeah.
What is that symbol being selected from?
It's an asterisk.
Okay.
And it's a wild card for everything.
Okay.
So when I do this, it returns everything. It's sorted by last name. So notice it's Allen, Anderson, Baker, Banner, Bayland, Beneford, Bishop. It's in alphabetical order by last name. If you wanted to, you could also just do a comma and say person first name. And what it would do is it would do a secondary sort by first name.
So they would have two little tabs down there for results, or
No, it's
If
not
the
that
same
smart.
last name, it would just-
So notice it's
Just Sally before
Baker
Tom
and Baker, Sally, Tom, because S is before T. Although if I wanted to reverse that, I could put DESC. Why is it not like DESC there?
How do you know it doesn't like it?
That's underlined.
Oh.
order by. Oh, it's probably.
What does that mean?
It means backwards. So now Tom is before Sally. So descending. DESC is descending. It means like Z to A, larger number to smaller number. The default one, notice I didn't write anything by this one. The default is A to Z, 1 to 10, whatever. The default is always ascending, but you can change it to descending, and it doesn't change the whole thing to descending. It changes the field that you're next to. So if I want
two results.
what?
I got two different.
Oh, you probably ran both
panels.
queries.
Oh,
So if you just select that one.
okay. Oh, yeah, that's right.
If I wanted the last name to be descending, I could put the DESC on that, and they would both be in reverse order. So now we start, instead of A, we've got Zukov, Zorn, Zimmerman, you. So you can order these by any way you want, pretty much. And you can do combinations. And this is always, the first one listed as the primary sort, and the second one is the secondary sort. And you can have as many sorts out as you want. Where that's actually really useful is like you might want to primary sort by year, secondary sort by month. And then you could do even a third degree sort by alphabetical name, whatever you wanted. These are kind of fun. They're not what we're going to mess with right now, but that's a hashed password. This actually goes on for a long ways. You notice it has 3 dots at the end. You should hash passwords.
That way it looks all messy.
Well, these supposedly a hash is unbreakable, but I don't know. Some earlier hashes, eventually a hash is broken and then you have to go to a new hash.
Makes it very difficult.
Yeah. All right. So are you guys okay with select? And let's do a couple of, let's change this. Notice that we're still returning all the rows. All right, so if you wanted to select among the rows, let me see what we got where we could select. Well, I know we got a couple of bakers. Let's just do, I'm going to basically select. As I said, I'm not good, you can tell by capitalizing, I'm not good at doing that. And I'm going to introduce another keyword where person last name equals baker, because there were 2 of those, right? And again, you have to use a single quotes for this. This is looking for a literal. So what it does is it returns, of all those rows, it only returns the 2 where the last name is equal to baker.
And is it picky about spaces? Like, for example, there are no spaces, person last name equals quote, baker quote.
No.
It's not,
Put a space in there.
this space doesn't matter. I mean, you could do whatever you want there.
Okay.
I don't think it matters here, but let me add a space. I'm going to add a space before and after in there, and I don't know what that will do. Yeah, see, it returned nothing.
Yeah.
So within the literal quotes, the spaces do matter.
And then typically you would put a semi at the end of that.
Yeah, you should put semis at the end. As I said, I get lazy because I'm in this environment. I usually remember to put them when I have to, but it's a good habit to be in. So that's looking for a particular person. I mean a particular name, and you can do that. You could also look for groups of names. So I'm going to say where person, last name, like, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do B and a % sign and then close the quotes. Anybody have an idea what that does?
To look for everybody that has a B.
Actually, where their name starts with a B. So what we get is we get 10 rows all starting with a B. The last name starts with a B. The % sign is a wild card in this context. It's also a math. So in this context, it's a wild card for everything else that follows. If you wanted one that just had a B in it anywhere, if you did a % sign in front of the B, it would just look for anything that has a B in it. So this time I have 15 rows. So it has like Robinson that has a B in it. A couple of things about like, it's really useful, but it's very inefficient. If you had some millions of rows in this table, this could take a while. We've got about 150 rows, so everything is instantaneous. And it's also all on our computer. We're not doing it across the network like you would usually do it.
So
But
better to narrow your search.
it's better to narrow the search. I mean, this is a very inefficient search because it has to do all sorts of cross matching and stuff. It could be really slow. Okay, so we've got just a few things here. I wanted to, let's look at a date and maybe a number, and then I might end with just showing you how to join tables, although that's a bit of a leap from this, but that's when you create your database, you split everything up, and you really would want to bring them back together for the information, right? So a couple of things, actually. I'm going to, just to show you kind of what the data is like, I'm going to do select star from person address. And the reason why address is split apart from person in this is that some people, particularly the donors, may have multiple addresses, right? Now, the address is tied to the person by the person key. So notice like 33, that means that this person has two addresses. One might be a business address and one might be their own address. So the other thing I wanted to show you is nulls, right? So a lot of people don't have apartment numbers. So there's a null there. That means that that's a missing thing. But how do you search for a null or search for the lack of one? So I'm going to basically copy this line, except I'm going to add some to it. Let's look for a null. If you wanted, when you do apartment, right? If you do equals null, it won't give you an error, but it actually won't give you anything. The logic is that a null is not equal to anything. Null can't be compared. So what you do is you use the word is. When I do is null, it shows me everybody that has an empty apartment field. If I do is not null, I can get all the ones where there are no nulls in the apartment field. So I just wanted, because sometimes it's important to know, like if you're doing math or something, you might want to eliminate the nulls. Yeah.
How is different than equals?
Equals compares values, right? And you can't compare a null to anything because it's an unknown. So they're strict about you can't use equal with nulls. The trouble is it doesn't throw an error. It just doesn't return anything. So is with nulls, and you can use not, right? So I said this is pretty English. Give me all the addresses where the apartment isn't empty is basically what it's saying. I'm going to do service grant too because I want to show dates, and then I think, did I do any dates? Select star. And then I'll show you some joins here. So this one there's a couple of things that I want to show. If you're looking for money, I'm going to say where grant is greater than, I see 500 there. Let's just say greater than 4. When you have numbers, you don't have to quote them. That's the main thing I wanted to show you. So it shows me there are 21 rows where the grant allocation is larger than 400. So you can just use a greater than sign. So you can use greater than, less than, with the numbers equal. If you're looking for dates, post all this online, and it is being recorded too. Select star from service grant. Where date, or where, what is it? What is the date field? Grant review date. So let's just do, I see quite a few there with 11. So dates are quoted with single. Let's do it as 11/8/2013. You don't have to enter it the way it is there. That should work. Oh, it doesn't like, okay, I left out the T. Oh, is there none of them? Is it 8/11?
Just, there's none. I got the same thing.
11/08.
Well, I don't think 08 matters. 2013, that's because it's 8.
Yeah, 9 actually.
Well, that was that one. Let's look down. I had those 11s. No, I don't know. That's 11, yeah, 11/9 at the end anyway. Does that work? 2013. It's not getting it. If I do 09, does it make a difference? Or is it 09/11?
Might be in that order.
Someone was saying
Might
maybe
be.
it's the 9 goes first.
That's what I was thinking too. That didn't work either.
I think it's the year.
I did 8/11/2013. That's not.
Yeah, that worked. 8.
8 is the month.
8 is the month, but why 11? That's not what I'm getting in the results.
Oh, grant review, see the other date? In the last, second to last.
Oh, I'm doing grant date.
That's why I get.
Yeah, the grant review date is a different date than the grant date. So let's look at the service grant again. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but so I could do 8/9 just to get the top ones here. No, it didn't work. I never had trouble getting the date. What is it?
Service grant.
I think this one is 9/8. I was right the first time. I was just using the wrong date. No? You can enter it the way it is, but why am I not getting that? Got
Is it the year first?
Well, you don't have to enter it that way. That's what I was kind of just trying to show.
Is it because of time, isn't it?
No, you can ignore the time.
What if we do 8/9?
I think it is 8/9, but it still should. It wasn't working, right? I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. Let me look at a particular date. So if we go, this would be like, obviously the 16, that's the day. So it'd be 8/16/2013. Still not returning the dates. That's strange, actually.
You need to put like 0 on the date.
I don't think you have to put a 0. I honestly don't think so. That should work. I'm not sure why it's not. So let's try it the way they do it. You shouldn't have to enter it this way.
Would you be able to search the month and then like asterisk for archive in there?
See, it's not returning dates for anything.
I tried including all the like 15,
Yeah,
44, 13, and it returned.
it did return.
Yeah.
But it should still return the date. It should just return the date. Like if I did, here's another thing you can do with dates. And you can do it with some numbers too. Where grant date between in 2013, oh, let's do like 19. No, it's the month, so it has to be 8. I think this will work.
I like that for some reason.
I'm not sure why, he shouldn't have to do the time. But, because unless they've changed something in the newest version, which is possible.
I just put it, I used the other formatting in it,
Which the,
8/9/20.
and yours worked?
Yeah, but that syntax.
Well, the between should work. Because the between is just looking between those two dates. But it should work actually just, you shouldn't have to put the time to search for the date in that. I will look at that because that's weird. And I don't want to spend a lot of time at this because I don't want to take all your time. I think that's most. I was going to show you the between. Do you want to see one join before I give you time to work? I'm not expecting you to have these queries done. You can maybe do some real simple ones, but I'm going to show you more sophisticated ways to do things too a little bit. Let's look. So we have like a person key here. Notice how we have a grant key. We have the amount of the grant. This is not real clear. Naming is not my best feature. The grant amount is not the amount they're granted, it's the amount they're requesting. So it should be like request amount. The date, this is the date the request goes in. This is the person who's requesting it, and their information is in the person table. Their addresses are in the address table. This is the service that they're requesting. So there's a service table that has all that. This is just a key. This is if it's been reviewed, this is the employee that reviewed it. This is the date that it was reviewed, and then it has whether it was approved or not. And then it's not totally in orders. This is their need explanation. And then this is the amount that's actually allocated for the grant. It could be the same or less than the amount that they request. So, but let's say we just wanted to know who the person was. Okay, so that's in a different table, right? We've just got numbers there to represent the person. So I'm going to do, let's just do select, I'm going to do, let's say person last name, person first name, let's do the grant date, the grant amount they're requesting. And for right now, let's let that be enough. Maybe the grant need explanation. Okay, so that's the list of columns that we want. Now notice the columns are from two different tables, right? The person table and the grant service grant table. So I'm going to say from person, all right, and that will give me the first two. Notice that the red lines go away from the first two. Now I need to join it with service grant. So I'm going to say inner join service grant. And I have to tell it how to join. So I'm going to say on person dot person key. So the primary key, person key in person table is equal to service grant dot person key. In service grant, it is a foreign key. So we're saying means the foreign key. We're telling it how the tables are linked. Okay, so if I do that right now, that's actually all I need to run this. Notice that instead, so I have the person last name, person first name, the grant they're requesting, and their need explanation. And so you have a person's name to go with it instead of a number.
What is the service grant?
The service grant is what they're asking for. It's in what the charity is giving out. They give out money. Service grant is a table. Right, so there's two tables involved here. Person last name and person first name come from the person table. Grant date, grant amount, and grant need explanation come from service grant. And what the inner join keywords mean is join these two tables. And what are you joining them on? You're joining them where person key matches person key. Right, because that's how the relationship exists.
You're taking the 2 keys and everything.
Right, so this is primary key, foreign key. Although actually it doesn't matter, you can flip them and it's over. So the tables, in order to join tables, they have to have that common field. That's part of the relational model. Yeah. And if we wanted to know, now, and you could add a where clause to this if you only wanted to look at one person. Let's do J. Anderson because they're at the top. Where, say, last name, person last name. These field names have to match what's in the database, right? Equals Anderson. So if I run that again, it'll limit the number to those two. So let's add one more thing to it, just to complicate it a tiny bit more. Does that make sense, though? I mean, that's a big leap, actually, from just doing the selects. But this is how, when you're building, later, when you're building form, actually see stuff going on. You have to join the tables to bring the information up to show everything.
this actually changing the database?
That's actually a good question. No select changes anything about the database. We're not changing any data. Even if you change how it's displayed, it's not affecting the data underneath. There are some things, I'll show you next time, insert, update, and delete affect the data in the database. And particularly update is dangerous, more dangerous even than delete, actually. Because you can update and say change somebody's name to who that is. You could have an which always reminds me of the Matrix, but okay. So I'm going to add one more table. Or Brazil, yeah. I'm going to add one more field in here, which would be the, I think it's service name. All right, so that's in another table yet. In the original service grant, let's just do service grant again. There's a service key, which is like 1, 3. It tells you what service they're asking for because there's a set number of services things. So service name is in, again, my naming conventions of this are bad. It's in community service. I originally named it service, but service is a reserved word. So it's community service and service name is there. So I'm going to add another inner join. And you can inner join as many tables as you need. As long as there's a path, as long as they're related, right? And then there's always the on clause where you say how they're related. So community service, can't type, dot service name, service key equals service grant, which is where the actual grant happens, dot service key. So when we do this, we can see the name. Oh, the where has to go away for a moment.
Oh, yeah.
The where has to come to the end. There is so as well as there are certain things that are about it. And again, it's English-like in a lot of ways, but it is a computer language. So select always has to come before from, right? So you always select your columns before the from, even though, not that it matters, it actually does the from first when it does the processing underneath. It looks to find what table first, and then it goes into the table to find the columns. But select from, so select these columns from, join it with service grant on this relationship. Then we're going to also join it with community service based on this relationship. And we're going to limit it to where the person's name equals Anderson. And you can have as many joins as you like, with the one caveat that, again, if you have millions of records, each join adds to the time. So this one is for transportation and this one's for food. Those are the service, what the service numbers refer to. Oh. If I leave out the where, if I just highlight, it'll give everybody, right? What? Make sure, I moved the where down. It was originally up here. It had to be moved down. The where has to come after all of that. Now, there's a whole bunch of other stuff, but I said I'd give you time to work. So, I mean, there's a whole quarter of it. Couple of things I'll show you next time are a few functions. Like there's a date and time. If you want to extract a part of the date, you can do that. You can subtract just the year or just the month or just the, And you can do the same with hours and stuff. You can subtract just the hour second. So you can do some date. There's also some functions that allow you to compare dates. You can add them together or subtract one date from another date. And there's lots of other functions too. There's actually hundreds, which I'm only going to do a few. The date time ones tend to be the most useful. And I'll show you how to do sums, averages, and max, minimum, that kind of thing. And then insert, update, and delete. So that's what's left. I think I can do that in the first hour. What I'd like to do is both today and Thursday give you an hour to work. And it may take longer than that to get everything done. Right, so, but I wanted to show you to get the beginnings of this. So if you haven't done the data yet, enter the data, and then you can start doing a few queries. I'm going to show you how to use these to check on like the business rules. If you say that you can return all this data, can you return it? Can you enter? Can you look at it in this? You know, if you have things that you need to be able to see in the database, can you see them the way you're supposed to? Things like that. But I will post this script. Yeah. Question? Okay. Oh, sure. I will see if I did. You figure out what it was saying?
Yeah, I'm close to the end.
Okay, good. Well, I think I'm done with that. I'll just help you guys work.